Air-Clips.com.
Hello everyone and welcome to Palmdale, California, USA. My name is Patrick and I would like to welcome you to another fantastic episode of the Air-Clips.com Ultimate Cockpit Movies. Now, today we're not having a film about the Cessna 172, as you can see from the background behind me. This is one of the most unique cockpit movies you'll ever get to see anywhere, including on Air-Clips.com. We are the guests of NASA and DLR today, the American and German aerospace administrations, and of the DSI, the German institute responsible for operating the SOFIA airborne telescope, which is mounted into this beautiful classic Boeing 747SP, an ex-Pan Am aircraft, still having a little bit of the Pan Am-like livery and still christened Clipper Lindbergh as it was back in the days of Pan Am 2. So what you are going to witness today is a fantastic science flight on board and in the flight deck of this unique piece of machinery here. DLR and DSI expert Oliver will give you a fantastic tour up front through this unique interior of this aircraft, show you all the scientists' working spaces and this fantastic telescope which is mounted into this aircraft. You can see a little bit in the rear of this aircraft there's a unique bubble shape that you would not see on any other 747 aircraft, and this is actually where the telescope is mounted, and in flight this whole door would open, slide open and give a free sky for the telescope which is in there. But you will learn all of this in this movie, along with a fantastic flight with our captain Elizabeth and her crew. The walk-around of the SOFIA missions always happens at the same time when the mission briefing takes place, which I'm obliged to participate in, so I can't film that for you. But luckily we got flight engineer Chris. He's not flying with us today, but he was so kind to give us a little bit of an extra show, and he will show you later not only an iteration of the walk-around, but also he will show you some hidden places and even secret access into this unique aircraft. Welcome to NASA, welcome to DLR, welcome to a fantastic 747 SP experience.
My name is Oliver Zeile and I'm the lead engineer for the SOFIA telescope, and I'm going to give you a small tour of the SOFIA Observatory. So we're now here in the nose of SOFIA. As you can see, these are still the old first-class seats from the original SP. But on this side we got these racks here, and this rack is actually the part where we switch on the instrument, switch on the telescope, and this is also the power distribution for the telescope. And also, if you jump a little, it's a really hard floor. So this is not your typical sandwich floor that you see in lightweight, that you see in any aircraft. Actually, basically from where the camera is standing right now till here, that's all solid steel plates, and you got tungsten steel alloy, about 600 pounds of that in the front. And this is all the counterbalance for the heavy telescope in the back, which is about 17 tons. When the airplane first came into service, it was christened by the widow of Charles Lindbergh, and it got the name Clipper Lindbergh. And when NASA got the airplane, it actually kept the name, and the grandson of Charles Lindbergh rechristened it, and we still kept the name Clipper Lindbergh. So the airplane is still called Clipper Lindbergh. The entire thing is the SOFIA Observatory. So this station is for the mission director and the mission director 2. The mission director 2 was called the science flight planner, and this is more or less the job that this person does now. Still, So the mission director is responsible for the observations and coordinating everything between the science team, the telescope operators, and the pilots. So if we have to change our course a little to help the observations, that gets coordinated with the pilots. The science flight planner actually checks that we are in position on time where we need to be for the observations. And for example, if the wind blows us off course a little, science flight planner or mission director too also can update the flight plan in real time, and working together with the pilots get that flight plan to the ground controllers, and we basically can continue our flight and update our flight as we are observing. Okay, so this station looks a little different than the other stations. It's way more mobile, and this is the reason because this station is for the science instrument, and those computers are what actually control the science instrument, take in all the data, store the data, and every science instrument of course has its own suite of computers and servers to operate the science instrument. So all the computers here and this racks get swapped out with the science instrument about every 2 weeks, when we actually remove the science instrument, put a different instrument on for different kinds of observations. So, and this is now why we're here and why we're doing all this. So basically all the blue part is a telescope that is permanently installed. And right now here, this golden thing here, this is Hawk Plus. Hawk Plus is a fast infrared camera. And the special thing on Hawk Plus is Hawk Plus can measure the polarization of the incoming infrared light. And from that polarization, the scientists can calculate back to the magnetic field lines it's observing. So basically, Hawk Plus can measure magnetic fields that are around black holes and other galaxies and do science there. Basically, the scientists are trying to explain why black holes are eating mass at the rate it's eating, because some black holes are eating the mass slower than it should be under gravity alone, and they think that it might have to do something with magnetic fields around the black hole. So this is one of the science instruments. The science instrument gets swapped out about every 2 to 4 weeks for different observations, and together with the science instrument itself comes this rack up here, and this rack up here holds other electronics to control the science instrument, and it's also strategically placed to be a counterbalance to the heavy primary mirror that's on the other side of that bulkhead. Right down here on the other side is our 800 kilogram heavy primary mirror, and this also provides a counterbalance to that, because the entire telescope is only suspended by one point in the center of that sphere, and when we're observing, everything needs to be in balance. So all the mass here, the mass distribution here, needs to be in balance, needs to be the same than the heavy optics on the other side. For the observations, we can point the telescope from 17 degrees to 65 degrees above the horizon. So the telescope is always looking out the left side of the airplane. And this round structure here hosts the so-called course drive, and this is used, it's basically just electric motors that turn the telescope up and down 17 degrees to 65 degrees. So any target higher than 65 degrees or lower than 17 degrees we cannot observe. Lower than 17 degrees also doesn't make a lot of sense to observe, because the way through the atmosphere is so long, and the water vapor in the atmosphere filters out the infrared that we want to observe. So basically we're not getting a lot of signal there. Anything higher is basically just limited by the opening in the back. We can't have a door or an opening in the fuselage that's larger than that. To actually point the telescope while the airplane is moving and thrown around in turbulence, we got the so-called fine drive, and that is located basically inside that ball that you can see here. So the fine drive is turning the telescope 3 degrees up, down, left, right, and also twisting 3 degrees, so basically in every direction. And this takes care of any tiny aircraft movements, and as I said, the turbulence. So in flight you will see this inner part moving, but you always have to keep in mind, if you see that moving, it's actually us in the fuselage that gets thrown around by the turbulence. The telescope itself is stable and pointing on the target and not moving at all. So if you get a little sick in turbulence, sit on the telescope, because that's the non-moving part, and that's basically what is stable enough. Our instruments here are filled with liquid helium and sometimes liquid nitrogen as well, which is actually heavier than liquid helium. and that gets boiled off over time. So this part, the instrument, gets lighter. And everything needs to be in perfect balance, which means if this part gets lighter, we actually have to compensate for that. And in here, we got two weights, about 84 kilograms each. They're on a spindle, and in flight they're moving ever so slowly towards us and compensating for the weight loss in here. So the fastest movement speed is for VFLS, which is actually 0.0037 millimeters per second, or over a 10-hour flight, it's about like 30 to 40 centimeters movement of those heavy weights. So for the scientists, there's a so-called call of proposal every year. So the scientists hand in what they want to observe, and then there's a board of experts that decides basically the merit of that proposal. So how likely is it that what they want to observe can actually be observed? How likely is it that it's successful? And how interesting is it for the science? So how new is it? And based on that, they get their observation time. And then once basically we know how much observation time we need for which instrument, the flight planners get together, and then it gets decided who gets which part of which flight for which instrument, and that gets planned almost a year in advance. The detailed plan for each flight is more or less like 3 or 4 months in advance. The biggest difference from the SOFIA telescope to lots of ground-based observatories is that a lot of ground-based observatories or amateur telescopes are actually on a parallactic mounting, which means that one of the axes is pointing to the North Pole in the sky, and it's basically just rotating around this axis. Since we're not flying in one direction always, and we're basically zigzagging all over the place with our flight plan, we have to have it 3-axis stabilized, which means we have to, and we can move the telescope in each axis, so X, Y, and Z axis, basically. And also we are operating the telescope with a mild earthquake and a hurricane going on all the time, because there are vibrations from the airplane. So the engines are vibrating, we got aeroelastic vibrations from the wings, all that stuff. That needs to be filtered out by the telescope and compensated for by the telescope. And also in the back, the optics, there's no window over the opening. So it's actually an opening. The airplane is flying at Mach 0.85, sorry. We're not supersonic. So 85% of the speed of the sound. And which means that a little bit of the air is actually going inside the cavity and trying to move the telescope. So this is the hurricane that's going on all the time. So with winds like that, normal observatories would most likely close their dome and call it a night, but that's what we are operating in all the time. We're special in that we observe infrared, and the infrared cannot be observed from the ground because it gets filtered out by the residual water vapor in the atmosphere. So we are taking the telescope above all the water vapor and then have a clear view of the infrared, and it's almost like observing from space.
What we have here is compressed helium gas. We use the compressed helium gas to pressurize this doer that's using liquid helium, and we use a transfer line that pushes the liquid helium out into our instrument, which needs to be kept at 4 Kelvin, and that is essentially what we're doing. We're filling the instrument with cryogenics. After the cryofill, we'll be performing an ADR, which is an adiabatic demagnetization refrigerator process, which brings the instrument below the liquid helium temperature. In order to do that, we have to do the cryogens first. So right now we're just going to be setting up. You'll see us connecting hoses and filling out paperwork. And so that's going to take a few minutes. The cryo transfer, maybe 20 to 30 minutes of just filling. That's supposed to be on. this is going to take maybe 20 minutes, roughly. It's going to be a lot of waiting. We have a sensor right over here. That sensor is a percentage. It's not completely accurate, but it gives us an idea of where we are. We know it's full, not necessarily by the sensor, but from the plume. You have that cloud of helium shooting out. When it's full, you're going to see it's going to shoot out a lot more drastically. Until then, we're just going to stand here and wait.
Now we're on the upper deck, behind all the seats. This is where the galley for the first class used to be. And this is the wall of fame for SOFIA. So a lot of people who visited SOFIA did sign here. So we got Fred Hayes, Apollo 13 lunar module pilot. We got different shuttle pilots. Nichelle Nichols, the original Lieutenant Uhura, and she actually flew on SOFIA when she was here and visiting us. And we got Bill Nye the Science Guy. On the other side, we got different people like ambassadors to New Zealand, the German ambassador or the US ambassador, and they visited SOFIA when we were in New Zealand, of course. And you see, this is like one of the most famous children's science programs in Germany, Sendung mit der Maus, and the Maus visited us in 2019 when the airplane was in Stuttgart and visiting there. Different systems are here. We got our pressure bottles. One of those bottles is actually for the seal for the door. So this is more or less like a garden hose that gets inflated, just to make sure there's no water coming in or dust coming in. We're in the desert here, so we don't want any dust coming in. But also in New Zealand, when it's raining, we got the seal inflated to make sure there's no rainwater coming in the cavity and dripping on the telescope. On this side behind you, are two cryocoolers. Not all of our instruments actually use cryogens like liquid nitrogen, liquid helium that gets boiled off. We actually have one instrument that reuses the helium, and this is basically just the cooling mechanism, the cooling cycle for this one instrument. On this other side, this is actually the cooling air for all of the instrument racks of the telescope. So we got air coming up, cooling our computers, going through, and on the ground it's actually vented overboard, and in flight the seal is activated and we're actually recycling that air into the cabin just to make sure we don't lose too much pressure.
My name's Chris Farina. I'm a flight engineer on SOFIA. I started out as a flight engineer in many airlines, different airplanes ago, about 1984. Started 747s in 2003 through 2012. Came to NASA 2014, been here 8.5 years. So I've been asked to show you what I look at and a walk around, a pre-flight of SOFIA, particular to 747 SPs. So if you're ready, we'll get started. We usually start right here. We come down the steps. First thing we look at up there is we see the angle of attack gauge, a small one there, and the two PDOT tubes. We want to make sure those aren't covered and they look free. And then we look up the windshield wipers. You see a little white dot right below the black windshield wiper. You want to make sure that wiper is on top of that, not below it. So in case you need the wipers, you have them. And we walk around to the front of the airplane. We don't see any, if we see any little holes in it, it means probably had a lightning strike and might have to be inspected. Same thing on this side of the airplane. PDOT probes, angle of attack, that sort of thing looks like a little wing. And we see that the white tab for the windshield washer. Inspect the nose gear and make sure normally this pin would be removed. This tells you there's a gear pin in here. On a normal pre-flight, we make sure that's gone. A missing lug nut would be a no-go item, so we check every wheel for that. Look at general condition, tires are good. We note the steering bypass pin is in. That's so they can tow the airplane. But after we get engines to go to the engine start, maintenance will pull that out, walk out and show it to the guy on the left seat. So he knows it's been removed, so he has tiller authority on the nose gear steering. Check this wheel. Looks good. Check the pressure gauge, it's a normal pressure. Come back this way. Normally, this cargo door will be closed, and we check these pin alignments here. There's little windows in the door. So you check that. You look at the number 3 pack. That looks good. Now we start down the airplane. Leading edge, all intact. Retracted, it looks very good. Come now look at the engine. Red stripe is very important. In early 747s, they didn't have that. And they had some problems with the motor mount breaking some bolts. And they didn't know it, and then the engine fell off. So now, as long as that stripe's perfectly aligned, everything's okay. If you lose one of them, it'll tell you right away, so you stop an engine from falling off. Come back, look at the motor. General condition. Good. Good. Look at the engine, we look at all the blades, make sure there's nothing damaged. We look at the rim of the motor, make sure there's no loose rivets. If you had a bad rivet, we wouldn't want to go because it could pop out and fog the engine or damage to the engine. So inspect that over. Come to this side. Look at the same thing. Except here we have these 2 little brown dots. Those are thermal relief discs for the 2 fire bottles, fire agent to put a fire out. If those aren't red, it means a bottle was discharged. We'd have to have that bottle replaced. Once again, we check for the same red stripe right there. They'll do this on all 4 engines. Look at the leading edge. Come on down. It's good. It's good. Come around to the front. Sometimes you have to get back so you can see all the blades. They look good. Cowling looks good. Over here. 2 thermal discs are good. Red stripe is good. Leading edge is looking good. If the APU is running and the nav light's on, this is when you check your nav light. And that's where if you were to dump fuel, it'll come out of that tube there. And there's the vent for it, so you check, make sure that's not obstructed. Nobody's ran into the flap. They have the static wicks on it. It looks good. Go to first main gear. We check this gauge right here. Make sure they're all within the same. Doors look good. Come back here. The wear pin indicators. You want at least a 1/4 inch sticking out. This is on the back brake. We're going to check all the lug nuts. Now we're going to check these wear pin indicators. These are easier to see. You want at least a 1/4 inch sticking out. You're going to check this. In this case, the gear pins are still in. Normally they'd be removed and you look at that hole to make sure it's clear. There's no gear pin there. So this gear is set. Come to the body gear. So right wing gear, right body gear. Pretty much the same. Check our wear pin indicators. Down there and there. They look good. These look good. 1/4 inch. We look in here. Don't see any leaks. Everything looks good. It's our APU emergency shutdown. If there was a fire, you can shut it down from here. Not have to be up in the cockpit. It looks good. One white tail light there. One tail light there, they'd normally be on. Right about there, that's the thermal disc for the APU fire bottle. Checking that just like we check the engines. Want to make sure that little red disc is on there. Come down here. So look good. Check out this outflow valve cover. That's good. Check the wear pins. Check the lug nuts. Check the gear pins. And on the left side, we're going to check that valve right there. That's how they service the hydraulics. They can select the 1 through 4 system. Got to make sure it's right there and it says closed. They're where they can hook up hydraulic fluid and take that thing, there's a handle, and pump it and service the hydraulic system. Wear pin indicators, good. And lug nuts. And lug nuts. Everything looks good up in here. I don't hear any. About a month ago, I had a bleed air leak up here. I had to get maintenance. It was actually blowing on the temperature probe for a brake overheat. If we would have took off, we would have had an indication of a fire in the gear well, which you don't want when you just take off. Unfortunately, they had to replace some seals, and we lost the flight that night. But that's what you're looking for and listening for. So, The gear pin is in, which it normally wouldn't be. Check our lug nuts. Lug nuts. Now, if you look at this one, see how long that rod is right there. It said it's an 1/8 of an inch minimum. That means that's a brand new brake on that side. That side looks good. That nuts. Door looks good. That looks good. Pin indicators, they look good. And that pressure gauge right there. They're all the same, so it's perfect. Drain mass looks good. That looks good. Look at our stripe right there. Good. Blades look good. Cowling looks good. Two thermal relief. Good red stripe. Leading edge is good. Got a red stripe. Engine looks good. It's good on that side. Beautiful looking engine. The rest of the leading edge. Those are called taco doors right there. Those two valves, if you had an overpressurization, they would pop open to relieve the pressure, and the only way they can reset them is on the ground. So they look good. The door handle's fared, and your static here, there's nothing over this. Your static ports, I'm gonna make sure there's not taped over. Those look clean. Those look good. Your 1 and 2 pack intakes. It looks good down there. That's the drain mass right there. If somebody was upstairs and used the lab to wash their hands, the water would come out of that. It's heated in flight, so it doesn't freeze over. And that, my friends, is pretty much a 747 FE walk around. Any questions? You know the guy to send their questions to, and we'll get you answers. Up here is called the E&E compartment. So all the airplane electronics, most of them are housed. It's the first floor of the airplane. There's a ladder, instead of those great big air stairs, that you can send a mechanic down or somebody back up. And see, these are spring loaded, and you can retract them and pop them up. And once you get up there, there's another door that you get to the main deck of the airplane. Second floor of the airplane. Third floor is up the upper deck in the cockpit. So that's why it's provided an egress way out the rest of the airplane without having the great big air stairs.
Yeah, I'll climb up there.
You're now in the E&E compartment, electronic equipment. So where a vast majority of the electronic boxes that you can see are attached here on these racks. And then if you look around the corner, you can look into the lower cargo bay also, which is accessible in flight. And now I will go up into the main deck of the airplane.
Okay, we've got one more minute and and then we'll start.
And it's white.
Did anybody
Yes,
explain to our guests the whole naming thing? Each mission is named. We did that after a while to keep track of the science mission versus the actual flight on the aircraft, because if we canceled, then they might try to reschedule that science mission on another night. And so each series just starts with the same letter, and I don't know who picks
We're
the
on Q
names.
now, yeah.
Or on Q, which is not all that useful for things. And so last night was Quasimodo, and tonight is Queequeg from Moby Dick by Herman Melville.
We actually found it useful. It's a lot more memorable to have
Yeah.
names than numbers. And it's been kind of fun as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the numbers were a problem when we switched the order of the flights.
Yeah.
It was like, well, we're flying now flight 4 instead of 3, and the 3 instead of 4.
Hey.
And it's like, what? And everybody got lost. So it's like, well, okay, let's name them, and then it doesn't matter.
Sign that. Okay, I think everybody is here. Welcome, and thank you everyone for being here for flight number 880, named Queequeg. I'm Liz Ruth. I'm going to be the pilot in command. The mission planner is Jeff Wilson. Co-pilot is Jim Less, otherwise known as Clue. Flight engineer John Duffy. Flight safety tech is Chad Hutchison. Maintenance ops engineering representative is Andy Levin. And mission director 2 is Charlie Kaminsky. So Derek, we are ready for the weather brief.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Derek, and I'll be giving you tonight's weather. Start off with the weather at takeoff. Winds are going to pick up a bit. We'll have a light breeze coming in this evening, 11 knots, gusts, occasional gusts up to 17 out of the west. The sky's going to be clear, and we'll be at 78 degrees tonight. So we can see a big low counterclockwise pressure system in the Gulf of Alaska, and pushing in some high clouds into off the west coast in the Pacific Ocean. So we can see the upper level wind pattern here. Jet stream not really organized with that low pressure, so not expecting any impacts out of that. Over the west, things are really light. Upper level winds are light. So I've circled just an area where there'll be some intermittent cloud coverage. Cloud tops looks like they'll get up to 36,000 feet. And that'll be it. It'll be a smooth flight, not expecting any turbulence or any thunderstorms. All right, so here's a graph of the precipitable water vapor versus time during the flight. And also the blue line indicates our altitude. So up to leg 6, there's some areas where water vapor gets high. That's when we fly through that cloudy area. It's above 20. But as we increase in elevation up to 41,000 feet, moisture levels drop off, and not expecting any impacts at those levels. We can see on the graphic here water vapor along the flight path. This is 39,000 feet, up in the teens and low 20s in some areas. And 41,000 feet and 43,000 feet, water vapor drops off to single digits. So yeah, on the surface, weather looking really good at these locations: Travis, Beale, San Francisco. Just a few clouds, light winds, and then coming back for any alternates you might need are looking good as well in the Allen Valley and LAX in Ontario. Just some overcast LAX, but everywhere else, mostly clear skies and light winds. Yeah, and then coming back to Palmdale, light winds, clear skies, and 63 degrees. That's all I have.
All right, any questions? Clue? John?
Not much
Okay,
going there.
that's the kind of weather brief we like to hear. Thanks a lot, Derek.
You're welcome.
All right, it looks like we don't have a lot of issues on the for the weather tonight. We don't have to worry about sunrise. If the door is stuck open and we can't get it closed, we can land back here at Palmdale. NOTAM review, both Jim and I looked and we didn't see anything that affected us tonight. A primary divert field, if we can't get into Palmdale, is Ontario. Aircraft status, Andy.
Okay, the fuel load is 217. The APU hour meter is stuck at 8318. They ordered a new part. Config change, you know about the 7 GoPro cameras installed. The tail nav light burnt out again last night. It's the same bulb, so they changed it again. So hopefully that'll work. And you know the new FMS data loader is good. That's it.
All right, that's also the kind of airplane brief we like to hear. Okay, ground ops. I think we can just do a mini tow straight ahead. I don't think we need to go around the corner at all. We'll do our standard taxi route departure runway for runway 25. Takeoff and landing data considerations. Looks like it's dry and clear, good winds, so I don't see any.
Just brake energy for the heat, but.
Okay, so we'll look at brake energy. In-flight departure routing, we'll be doing the runway 25 obstacle departure procedure to Fish and then Florida. And as soon as they allow us to turn, we'll take the turn and go to Florida, and then
We'll go to Ford 1 now.
Ford 1, yes, and then on to Catalina, and that should keep us on time. Planned recovery fuel is about 25.5. Seatbelt sign, it looks like tonight's going to be pretty smooth. We'll have it on below 10,000, and then as needed up above that. If we ever run into any turbulence, just let us know if you think we need to turn it on. All right, mission. Ellis.
Okay, well, you talked about departure already. Initial filed is 380. For your late takeoff, late 6 is your Bravo priority for tonight. You got a couple B priorities, but that's your first B priority. Runway 7 shouldn't be an issue. I got you for a late takeoff, 06P01, you can go up to 13 minutes late, and the routing's on there. And that's really it. And then you come back in, you're going to go through the complex, just the edge of the complex, Rosie back in. So
All right.
No factor with daylight or anything like that. So pretty easy flight.
Very
Should
good.
be.
Again, that's the kind of briefing we like to hear. So coming back in, it looks like we have plenty of time to close the door and cage. I'll probably descend to the bottom of the block to the 4-1, and we can do that. We have plenty of time, and we can do a nice, easy descent through the complex. And we will follow the descent profile limits, no limit above 18,000, 2,000 feet per minute below 18,000, and 1,500 feet per minute below 10,000. And I'll plan to come back in the ether and an ILS to runway 25.
Do we have an ops number to go through the complex?
And it's coordination. You're not going through
Well,
2515.
right. And we just clipped the corner of 2508. So I don't know whether they'll have us go around that or.
You get clearance.
We'll get clearance.
You have clearance. It's up to. I mean, at that point, it's.
But we won't have a poncho.
You know,
we won't have a poncho 3 if we don't have an ops.
You don't need an ops number. You just need a coordination sheet.
Yeah. Okay.
You got the coordination sheet.
And if all else fails, we'll just get
Go around.
vectors around
Yeah.
with LAX
Yeah,
and
they'll-
descend from there.
Arrival puts you through wherever they want at that point.
Okay.
Okay. All right, abnormal emergency procedures. If the door is stuck open, we will have a little time to try to get it closed before we end up landing with it open, and we'll go through the checklist and follow all the rules about bank angle, descent rate of touchdown, and we'll pull off and just face east, and then.
You may have time to actually, it depends on the timing, but you may have time to taxi all the way.
Oh, and we would get towed in, so we won't taxi with it open.
Why is that? Oh, because of the
Because-
dust.
Yeah.
Yep. Engine failure anywhere on takeoff. If we have an engine failure, we can just stay here and dump fuel and land back at Palmdale. Anywhere else on the route, we'll take care of it. And if there's no further damage, we'll head for home or to an alternate field, which would probably be LAX or San Francisco, depending on where we are on the route. Any smoke that anyone sees, get your oxygen mask on first, establish pre-communications, let the other deck know what's going on, and we'll go through the appropriate checklists. En route diverts, again, it looks like we have a lot of good places to land. San Francisco and LA will be the prime targets if we're out over water. Passengers with special needs, do we have any? We're not counting the journalists under this category. Our next category is media, and so you do have some special wants, I guess. I think you will be interviewing people downstairs as the time allows, and videoing.
Moving on to the start of mission brief. This will be flight number 2 for Hawk Plus. Welcome back, Hawk. Good to have that instrument back up and running and on board the jet. This is flight Queequeg, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, and flight 880 for SOFIA. Timeline, mission brief is underway now. Door closed is going to be 1920 tonight. If all goes well, we'll be back here at 04:58 in the morning, just over 40 minutes prior to sunrise, so we do not trigger our mission rule 12 tonight. If we do have to come back early for any reason, we will meet back here in this room about an hour after landing. Okay, moving on to roll call. Pilots tonight. Pilot in command is going to be Liz Ruth. Sitting next to her will be Jim Less. Here. And John Duffy is our FE tonight, already out of the aircraft, I presume. Okay, Chad is our flight safety tech. Hey, Chad. I'll be your mission director tonight, Will Montgomery. Sitting next to me as second mission director, Charlie Kaminsky. For those of you who are also flying Friday, it'll be pretty similar crew, I think. We'll just be swapping seats. Moving on, we have Sabrina at the SI tonight.
Yeah.
Yes, SI instrument operator, and Jillian as telescope operator tonight. Okay, we have Simon and Steve as our 2 instrument scientists on board. Welcome. Ground ops procedures tonight. Anything to say about these, or are we doing standard ops?
It's going to be standard ops. The mini tow should be just straight ahead. The winds aren't sufficient to make us want to go around the corner. Again, something different than a typical airliner. We will start engines 2 and 3, the inside engines, in parking, taxi out on 2 engines, and once we cross runway 22, you can see the little airplane between the 2 runways. Once we get to that position, then we'll start engines 1 and 4. So
Okay.
Standard operations tonight.
Okay, over to Elvis for mission plan.
Okay, gonna go down the corridor, flight level 380, gonna be over the ocean for 85% of your flight, then coming back in through the complex and then back in for 8 plus 42. Lake 6 is your first B priority. I've got 1 late takeoff for you. Is due to geometry, it's pretty much you can't catch up. So 06P01, 13 minutes late. That's really it.
Okay, thanks.
So the science that we're going to be doing, yeah, you can just go to the next slide there. We're going to be starting off with Legacy Program 0800112. This is Enrique's project. Essentially, the evolution of galaxies is controlled by a sort of delicate interplay between gravity and turbulent motions and gas and dust particles, kind of like the turbulence we hope you don't feel tonight. There's radiation and powerful jets emitted from young stars and magnetic fields. And magnetic fields really play a fundamental role in the space between the stars, in galactic dynamics and winds. And Hawk Plus, what we're flying with tonight, is uniquely suited to study exactly a theoretical description of how all of this works together and how galaxies evolve, specifically focusing on magnetic fields and what sort of influences they have. And yeah, this will be some of the first observations of the Antennae galaxy, which is a very popular astronomer's Valentine's Day card to give because it looks like a heart you can see on the right-hand side there. So it should be smooth all the way. Next slide. This one, of course, star-forming gas in a galaxy generally follows the spiral arms, and we live in the Milky Way. That has spiral arm galaxy. It's a spiral arm galaxy. So the densest parts of this gas form along these long cohesive structures that we call filaments, which are generally parallel to the galactic plane. And these filaments are huge. They're 60 to 300 light years long and 5 light years wide. And the dense filaments make up a sort of skeleton of star-forming gas in the Milky Way, and thus they've been called the bones of our galaxy. So these quote-unquote bones represent the largest star-forming structures in our galaxy, and previous studies suggest that magnetic fields are critical to their formation. So this team is going to use observations towards several of these galactic bones in combination with advanced physical computer simulations to investigate the role of magnetic fields and how they vary from place to place. So yeah, this is also really, really exciting work. Next, we have a study that aims to characterize the physical properties of neutral and ionized gas in a sample of nearby clumpy, turbulent galaxies. And what's special about these galaxies is that their overall characteristics suggest that they are very actively forming stars. So usually to observe galaxies at the peak of their star formation, we have to look really, really far away to see very far back in time. And it's difficult to characterize galaxies that far away. So it appears that these authors have found a closer sample of highly active star-forming galaxies that we can study in more detail. So specifically, HAWK+ is going to be used to measure the dust temperatures of these galaxies. And then we're going to combine that with FIFI-LS data, which is another instrument that SOFIA uses, to derive things like gas densities, radiation field strength, star formation rates, and then link these findings to larger populations across all galaxies. And then finally, we're going to finish off the night with an exciting program. Basically, these days, we are fairly certain that the majority of stars form in these elongated, gassy, dusty structures that we refer to as filaments. And these filaments fragment under the forces of gravity and kinetic motion in gas and dust material and magnetic fields. So we see filaments like this all over the Milky Way and elsewhere, and they play a crucial role in the earliest stages of a star's formation. But we've really only had the technology to study them in exquisite detail like this for the past 10 to 15 years, not the least of which because of SOFIA. And there are still huge uncertainties in how they form and evolve. So this study focuses on a filament in the Polaris flare, which is a snazzy name for a nearby cloud that looks like it's on the verge of forming stars, but isn't actively doing so yet. So the goal is to analyze the magnetic field structure of the dense filament, characterize the sites of potential star formation, and this should tell us a lot about the formation and evolution of stars. Fundamentally, it should tell us about our own cosmic history as well, because keep in mind, when we look out at new stars forming, we are actually fundamentally looking back in time at our own sun and planets and cosmic history. So all programs tonight, this is research that actually specifically hits really close to home.
All right, well, let's have a successful flight. I'll see everybody out there. Thank you.
Mission flight deck.
Go ahead, flight deck.
Are you going to be ready for pushback or tow?
We will be ready. Let me get everybody seated. Chad's just finishing arming the doors.
Okay.
Altimeter 2986, wind shift at 0106 Zulu, sea level pressure 087, runway 25 in use. Expect RLS approach, runway 25. Reels out of service, advise on initial contact. You have information Romeo.
Okay, when you are ready, let's do the pushback tow checklist.
Okay.
Clue, let us know when you're ready.
Yep. Ready. Okay, aircraft power, I am on. The APU. Pack valves are as required. IRSs.
Nav.
Now, body gear steering.
Armed.
Emergency exit lights.
They're armed.
Brake short select switch is primary system 4, and mission, are you ready for tow?
Okay, flight deck. Finally got everybody sitting down. Main deck is ready for mini tow.
And doors are armed?
Doors are all armed.
Thank you. Door warning enunciators are checked when cleared by the ground crew. Number 1 and 4 hydraulic systems.
1 and 4 clear.
Pressurized on 1 and 4. Park and brake.
Set. Pressure coming up. Pressure is normal.
Shocks.
Removed.
We don't need a clearance. Beacon. Both. Seatbelts on. Pushback directions, advise ground crew.
And ground, we just need to push or to tow straight ahead.
Straight ahead, copy. Ready for brakes.
Parking brake is released.
All right, here we go.
Clear it.
All right, still complete. Ready for brakes.
Okay, parking brake is set. Pressure normal.
Seatbelts on.
Let's turn it off for now.
Steering bypass pin.
Okay, bypass pin is removed.
Pushback tow checklist complete. Before start.
Yes, please.
Name is FPR.
Okay, I think he's not. Name is FPR is signed.
Circuit breakers have been checked. Oxygen pressure valve open and checked. Oxygen mask and regulators.
Checked and set.
Checked and set. Checked and set. Flight control power switches.
On.
Body gear steering.
Armed.
Anti-skid.
On.
Auto brake system.
Off.
Emergency exit lights.
Armed.
Fire warning has been checked. Mach air speed and stall warning has been checked. Nacelle anti-ice.
Off.
Probe heat.
On.
Window heat.
On.
Egypt whiz has been tested. Altimeters.
2986 with Romeo checked, set and cross-checked twice on the left.
2986 set, cross-checked.
2986 cross-check flight instruments and bugs.
Checked and set.
Checked and set.
Checked and set. Auto flight panel.
Checked and set.
Checked and set.
Clocks.
Set.
Set.
Set. VMO mode selectors.
Normal.
Norm.
Radar.
Test and standby.
Test and standby.
Gear handle.
Down and in.
IRSs.
Nav.
Nav.
FMSs.
Loaded.
Loaded.
Flap handle and indicators.
Checked.
Checked.
And checked. Thrust levers.
Closed.
Start levers.
Cut off.
Interphone and comm radios.
Checked and set.
Checked and set.
Nav radios.
Set.
Set.
Transponder.
Alt on and standby.
TCAS.
Standby.
Engine instruments R7J checked, no exceedances.
7J check, no exceedances.
7J check, no exceedances.
Thrust is 1.44 takeoff E%.
I see 1.44 takeoff E%.
Engine roll quantity's been checked. Fuel quantity and distribution is checked. Fuel use indicators are reset. Engine bleeds switches are open. Brake source select switches still primary system 4. ADPs are off. Engine driven pumps are normal. Hydraulic quantities are normal. Before start checklist complete.
Okay, when you are ready, starting engines checklist.
Okay, you starting engines check.
Yes,
Start
please.
valve. Arm switch is armed. Beacon.
Both.
Fuel panel, all boost pumps are on. Number 1 and 4 cross feeds are open. Number 4 electric hydraulic pump is still on. Park and brake.
Set pressure normal.
Chocks.
And ground. Are chocks removed? Okay, we'll look. Thank you.
Mission, are you ready for start?
Mission is ready for engine start.
Thank you. Door warning annunciators are checked. E&E is now out. Pack valves are as required. Duct pressure is checked at 40 psi.
Okay, I see chocks to the right.
Thank you.
Engines.
All right, let's turn 2.
Turning number 2. Start valves open. N2. Oil pressure.
Cockpit N1.
Max motor.
Idle. Fuel flow. Light off.
25. 30. 35. 40. 45. 50. Starter cutout.
564 PPGT.
Clear on 3.
Thank you.
All right.
Turn 3.
Turning number 3. Start valves open. N2.
3 stay.
Thank you.
Oil pressure.
Cockpit N1.
Max motor.
Idle. Fuel flow. Light off.
25. 30. 35. 40. 45. 50. Starter cutout.
573 PPGT.
Stand by, I'll be right with you. And mission, let me know when I can transfer power.
Roger, stand by. And FE main deck is ready for power transfer.
Thank you. Power transfer complete.
Roger.
How'd your guys' airspeeds hold up?
Yeah, it looks like it held.
Cool. Okay, generator breakers are closed. APU bleed air valve is closed. Number 3 pack valve is open. ADPs are continuous and auto. Starting engine checklist complete. Electrical system is checked. Crossover light is extinguished. Pack valves. Don't think this APU is going to handle another pack. Okay, go ahead. I got one on, but I got 2 ADPs going right now, so I think I'm just going to leave 1 pack on. Start levers, we'll leave that. Green band select switch.
Set light off.
Air conditioning is checked. Hydraulic systems are checked. Flaps.
Ground clear on the flaps.
Yeah, clear on flaps, go ahead.
Coming down. Okay, flaps are 10 planned, 10 indicated, green light D10.
10 planned, 10 indicated, green light D10.
10 planned, 10 indicated, green light, D10. Fuel panel is set. Door warning annunciators.
Extinguished.
Extinguished. Skip that, we'll skip that. And mission, are you ready for taxi?
Stand by for taxi, we're getting there.
Stand by.
I'll give a call for our clearance.
Sounds good.
Palmdale ground, good evening, NASA 747 Heavy, request clearance IFR round robin.
NASA 747 Heavy, Palmdale to ground, roger, clearance on request.
We should have a nice long sunset tonight.
At least we won't be staring at it on takeoff.
NASA 747 Heavy, clearance, ready to copy.
I'm ready.
NASA 747 Heavy, ready to copy.
NASA 747 Heavy, you are cleared to Palmdale Airport via the runway 25 ODP. Then as follows. On departure, climb maintain 7,000. Expect flight level 380, 10 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 124.55. Squawk 7242.
Now 747 Heavy is cleared to Palmdale via the runway 25 ODP, then as filed, climb and maintain 7,000, expect 380. 10 minutes after, 124.55, squawk 7242.
That's 747 Heavy, readback is correct.
Okay, we're back on time.
Yep, looking good. Especially since the takeoff slipped a little. We've got 21 minutes from taxi to takeoff.
Actual takeoff is 15 and 47 seconds, so we'll be
Yes.
pushing them up at 15.
That should work.
Jim Less approved technique, right?
You aiming to rotate at 47 or actually wheels off at 47? So you might need
yeah.
a few more seconds to get the wheels off. Yeah. Although we're light, so we'll accelerate a little faster.
If this is our biggest problem, we're doing really well.
You got to give us something to do up here, right?
Right.
And then when ATC doesn't clear us where we need to go, then all bets are off. But we're going to Ford 1, not Forda.
Yeah.
Flight deck mission. Final walk around is complete. We're ready for the seatbelt sign and taxi.
You ready for taxi? Thank you. Seatbelt sign.
On.
East's battery switch is armed. Transponder.
On.
Ground equipment and personnel.
Okay, ground, you are cleared off. Thanks for your help tonight.
Roger there, glad to help. Clean up to the right. Have a good flight.
All right, we'll look for you.
Palmdale ground, now 747 Heavy, request clearance, information, Romeo.
NASA 747 Heavy, roger. Information Romeo current, taxi runway 25 via Sierra, Echo, Papa, cross runway 22 at Sierra.
And now 747 Heavy copies, taxi runway 25 via Sierra, Echo, Papa, cleared across 22 at Sierra. And we'll be looking for a 2016 local takeoff time.
Copy all.
And when ground equipment and personnel is cleared, before taxi checklist is complete.
Okay, everyone ready to go?
Ready.
Parking brakes released.
Palmdale Tower information Sierra, altimeter 2988, runway 25 in use.
I've got 88 set. We'll update the rest when we get a chance. You are clear right for left turn.
Okay, before takeoff checklist, we'll wait on the control check till we get past the gate.
Copy. Okay. Brakes and steering.
They're checked.
And holding on control check.
Okay, gate looks open.
I concur, open both sides.
Is your iPad going to be clear when I do the control checks?
Pretty much.
Down. One down, two up.
I'll check the bottoms if you call the indicator.
We'll go. Two full left. Two full right.
And I checked the damper before, so complete for the control check.
Complete.
Nacelle anti-ice.
Off.
Trim.
Okay, we've got 0, 0, and 7.4 set.
Altitude select.
And 7,000 set.
And holding on crew brief.
A lot of little birds flying in front of us.
Yeah.
Stay out of our engines.
They birds or bats?
I think they're birds.
Funnel's clear. Clear on the left.
Clear on the right. 10 knots. Ground now 747. Need to pause here on Sierra to start our upwards.
Roger that.
I think we're his only game in town tonight. At least for the time being.
Parking brake is set, and let's start number 1.
Okay, stand by. Pressure's 40 psi. Ready on 1.
1 is clear. Turn
Turning. Start valves open. And 2. Oil pressure. Max motor.
Okay, so it is, I see visually, and I've got cockpit in one. I have idle, fuel flow. Light off.
30. 35. 40. 45. 50. Starter cutout.
604 peak EGT.
Ready on 4.
Clear right side.
Turning number 4.
It's already spinning.
Start valves open. And 2. Oil pressure.
Cockpit in one.
Max motor.
Idle. Fuel flow. Light off.
25. 30. 35. 40. 45. 50. Starter cutout.
585 peak EGT.
Crew briefing.
Okay, is everyone ready?
Ready.
Okay, this will be a left seat takeoff on runway 25. Runway is dry and clear. Weather is clear. We have no takeoff and landing data considerations. We have terrain to the south and west of us and no NOTAMs that affect us. On takeoff roll, call out anything you see. Below 80 knots, I'll abort for anything. Above 80 knots before V1, I'll abort for engine failure, fire of any kind, wind shear, controllability problem, something I don't want to take airborne. I will do the abort, throttle's idle, I'll get on the brakes, reverses up, back me up that the speed brakes come out. Jim, you call ATC, let tower know we're aborting, and John, keep everyone down, tell everyone to stay seated, we'll bring it to a stop and see what we need to do from there. After V1, we'll take whatever we have airborne. If it's an engine failure, we'll do the ODP, which is at 2.7 DME, which will be right here. I'll call for heading 020. We'll get to a safe altitude and cleaned up before we start doing any checklist. If it's anything else, again, we'll just turn back towards downwind, and we can stay here and assess the situation and dump fuel and come back and land. What we're planning for is to take off. We have the ODP, so I'm going to take off in FMS, and heading select at 400 feet, I'll ask for nav, and that'll take us toward fish. And then as soon as they let us, we'll go direct FORDA.
Okay.
And climb into 7,000. And are there any questions?
Negative.
Negative. PFDs, MFDs, and nav.
I am set for departure.
Set for departure.
Fuel panel is sampled and set. And one thing I didn't do on the asterisk items was start levers.
Start levers are in idle.
And I've got everything else back here.
Okay, thank you.
Before takeoff, checklist complete.
Very good.
13 minutes.
That's good.
Not bad.
Pretty sunset.
See if we see more of it. I don't know if we'll get high enough, early enough to see the sun again. Make it close.
47 Heavy, whenever you're ready, you can taxi onto runway 25.
Perfect.
NASA 47 Heavy, copies, cleared on to hold runway 25. Not standard.
Okay, parking brake is released. I'm glad. I think they should do this all the time. Lineup check.
Lineup check. Mission, are you ready for takeoff?
Equipment verified with the groups.
Good to the right. A little bit of wind down the runway, but not much. Final looks clear.
Thank you.
Main deck is ready for takeoff.
Thank you. TCAS.
ATARA.
Pack valves, pack 3 and 1 are open. Want to do lights now or wait till we get on the runway?
We can do them now.
Lights, all lights.
They're all on.
Ignition is flight start and standing by body gear steering.
Cam up tower.
How to gear steering.
Disarmed, parking brake is set.
Compasses.
Aligned with runway.
Aligned with the runway.
Heading bugs.
Set.
Set.
You want to hold on the warning lights then, or just since the brake is set, or just go ahead and call it?
Let's wait.
Okay, holding on warning lights.
Palmdale Tower, NASA 747 Heavy's ready for takeoff, runway 25.
That's 747 Heavy, roger.
That's not what we wanted to hear.
Not the requested response.
And Palmdale Tower, NASA 747, are we awaiting release or are we clear to takeoff?
Affirmative.
Waiting release.
That's 747 Heavy, runway 25, wind 21010, cover takeoff.
NASA 747 Heavy, copy, clear takeoff, runway 25.
Warning lights.
Checked.
Checked.
Checked. Lineup checklist complete. Engineers to hot
Okay.
mic.
Standing them up. Releasing brake and set takeoff thrust.
Airspeed's live. Takeoff for a sec.
Thank you.
80.
80 here.
D1. Rotate. D2. Positive brake.
Positive climb, gear up.
D2.
Nav, please.
20. Nav. Clear right. And traffic 800 above off the nose, we'll turn away from it.
Okay.
What's that mean? Contact Joshua Approach, have a safe flight.
Switching Joshua, NASA 747. See ya.
Flaps 5.
Come to 5. Okay, climbing above the traffic, no factor.
Thank you.
Josh approach, good evening, NASA 747 Heavy, passing 4,000, climbing to 7,000.
NASA 747 Heavy, Joshua Approach, good evening, the Palmdale altimeter 2987, I did.
Flaps 1.
Okay,
Set climb
2987
thrust.
with flash. Traffic's well below.
Thank you.
Good.
47 Heavy radar contact 5 miles northwest of the Palmdale Vortex. I'm going to maintain 13,000.
Yeah, climbing to 13,000 now, 747. Still clear to fish.
Yep. And flaps up. After takeoff check.
Speed's good.
And I see one through almost 1
Yeah, not
3,000.
quite yet. There's one through. Okay, clean.
Thank you.
Want me to start asking for Florida?
Please.
And that's 747 Heavy, request direct Florida.
47 Heavy, roger, turn right direct Florida.
Right direct Florida, 747.
Okay,
Yeah,
turn
we'll
direct Florida.
Direct to Florida 1.
Thank you. We're clean speed, I can go to 30 degrees and make.
Alright. And I'll update it when you get turned around, but you should.
Thank you.
Pretty good for a direct to.
accelerating. And you can get the seatbelts.
47 heavy for higher, contact LA Center 132.5, good day.
LA on 32.5, NASA 747 Los Angeles Center, good evening, NASA 747 heavy passing 10,000, 13,000.
Sorry, I missed the call there, NASA 747, you had 1113.
That's firm, 747.
That's 747, Los Center, climate maintain, level 1980.
Up to 190, NASA 747.
Bravo 759 is...
I see 190.
We have 10 miles.
190.
Center 200, I have a restriction test at the LA 4 Delta Delta level flight number 240. Number 4 Delta Delta Los Angeles Center, send via the Jenny class, step maintain 4,000, altimeter under 87. 2987 for 54 Delta Delta.
After takeoff check.
Check little link check.
Now reach out to your hand welfare for takeoff check. Stand by transition.
Thank you.
Altimeters.
I've got 2992 set twice.
2992, sir.
2992. All landing logo lights.
Off.
After takeoff checklist complete.
Thank you. So John, we're good for 39, right?
Correct. I was just going to ask you about that if you wanted to.
We'll go ahead and ask for it.
Los Angeles Center, NASA 747 heavy request level up, final level off of flight level 390.
I'm sorry, aircraft question 390, say again the call sign?
Yeah, it's NASA 747 heavy.
NASA 747 heavy, 390 is everybody.
Thank you.
There's cards.
47. That is 466.
And NASA 747 heavy request cell call check Echo Golf Alpha Kilo.
And are you CPDOC connected?
That's affirmative.
Okay, this is primary, secondary 8843. Cell call check.
NASA 747 good cell call check copy 8843 secondary will continue CPDLC.
I'm a 1369, contact Los Angeles Center, 119.05.
That was easy.
It was, and I'll take the radio back.
Hey, you've got Victor 2. You heard they cleared us to 390.
I did.
Watch the great opening of the telescope door and so much more in part 2 of this film, which you can find under the link shown down here immediately. See amazing pictures of the aircraft, enjoy our flight crew that finally has time to share all the details of their lovely 747SP with us. And then afterwards, join me on the way downstairs to the main deck, where you will see all the different science stations in action, and you will have fantastic interviews with all the different scientists at their positions while they are excited watching the stars. During cruise, you will not only learn about the different aspects of science, but you will also get to know personally the captain, her cockpit crew, and so many different scientists down there who share with you their passion for their work, their passion for the science, for flying, their passion and dedication to SOFIA and AirClips, as you can see here. Listen to fantastic stories, be inspired to pursue your own dreams and career wishes, and learn how to make them become true. After an exciting 8-hour night flight, you will see a beautiful early morning cockpit landing on the 747SP SOFIA until the mission finally comes to a rest and the airplane gets parked on the apron for being prepared for another science mission just a few hours later. Click the link now and enjoy part number 2.
Airclips.com